important, especially from the types of the practices of our trades. And so I decided to design a framework around your pen tester tools and a way to keep things consistent and up to date across the board. And it's a really easy framework. I really mirrored it kind of off of the Metasploit framework. So the syntax should be pretty similar to a lot of the folks that are used to it. But I also kept more of the module framework around Metasploit as well. So to create modules inside of PTF or the Pentesters Framework is very easy to do. It takes literally about 3 to 5 minutes depending on the complexity of the tool. Metasploit took me like a friggin' week to figure out how to get that to work and automate that, but it works now in a great way. But it's really just a way to keep all of your tools up to date, a framework to add your own tools. I know that when we do our pen test at TrustedSec, we have our own custom tools, things that we actually use internally as well. So pointing those to our internal repositories and having those tools, continuously up to date from the various different folks that maintain those tools internally are really important. Ah, come on, man! I've slept like 5 minutes. I'll drink this. Oh, it's warm too.
It's a present from Mick and Jamie.
Ah, I'm gonna sip it like a fine wine throughout my presentation. All right. It's so hot. It's local. And hot, yeah. Payback's a bitch. Getting iced at a 10 a.m. talk when you slept 30 minutes isn't the coolest thing ever, but PTF is one of those things that I really I use all the time now, and the reason I use it is because I like to use the tools that I write in. So whenever I go on a pen test, like usually I'll add like 2 more tools or 4 more tools. Like I remember when I started PTF, there was like 4 or 5 tools in there. Now I think there's like 70 now or something like that. And a lot of that's been through contributions with the community. I'll show a little bit about that, but the community is really taken a hold of it too and submitted a ton of requests. Like I remember Harmjoy released a tool at DEF CON called Empire, or I think it was at B-Sides. B-Sides or DEF CON, I can't remember which one. It's all blurred anyway. But when they released that tool, literally within like 30 minutes of that talk being done, there's already a module for Empire in that. And with PTF, all you have to do is just run the tool and you automatically get that new tool. That's it. So it's your new tools are automatically in there as you go and do it. I'll show you here an example. But in order to get to it, everybody see the screen okay? So in order to get to it, the first thing you do is just do git clone and just go to github.com. And if you just browse TrustedSec, Git repositories, all the tools that I write are underneath there. And then you just do PTF. And it'll go and clone it. I'm on a slow connection here. That's pretty quick. And then as soon as you go into PTF, all you need to really do is launch the PTF executable. And with PTF, every time you run it, it'll automatically update everything for you. So it'll update to the newest version of PTF. It'll grab all the new modules. And it'll make sure that you have all the latest and greatest repositories. So you don't ever have to do a git pull or git whatever anymore. It'll automatically go and do that for you. So as soon as you run git pull or PTF, it'll get to your current version. The current version right now is 1.2.2. And you notice here it's got a similar type of feel to Metasploit. You have kind of the prompt here. You can type help or whatever. And it also does smart detection on operating systems. So if you're running Debian, for example, it knows to use Debian packages. I believe we support a number. We support BSD, Debian. I believe we support Red Hat now. And then someone just did a pull for another one. I can't remember. It's hard to remember, but it's all in documentation. It's weird because I write the tool and I forgot those. But also supports 32 and 64-bit platforms. So if there's 2 different types of tool sets, one that runs better on 64-bit, automatically pull those down. But basically, it has a way of keeping all of your tools really in a central location, super easy to use. Notice here the total module count is 68. And in order to see modules, all you do is type show modules, very similar to Metasploit. You can see here it has all of the tools listed. Now it's a little compacted because of the screen resolution. But you can see here that all the tools that are in there, I mean, we have the Social Engineer Toolkit, Metasploit, JBoss AutoOwn, BruteX, IKE Force, SMB Exec, Malingo, all these different tools that you have available to you to actually go and use. And they're all broken down into the Pentesters Framework, PTest, and Penetration Testing Execution Standard, sorry. It's broken down into those type of categories. So like, for example, if you're doing vulnerability analysis, the tools are broken down into that. And one of the things I missed, growing up kind of with like Backtrack and prior to that, like IWAX and WAPIX and all those other ones is there's always like a /pentest directory, I don't know if you've ever been in a pen test, but like you're having a really tough time breaking in. And so then you start going for like the Hail Marys, where you're like in the pen test track, I'm like, hey, I've never used this tool before, maybe this will work, or I've used this tool, maybe this will work, And it's like the Hail Marys that you're looking for when you're going and doing those assessments. But a lot of times you're not familiar with the types of tools that are out there. So it tries to put in a structure where you're like, oh, hey, I'm in my exploitation phase. Let's take a look at what tools are in there to kind of go through and see what types of tools are there, go through those and use them. So it puts them down in those categories. And you can see here, it actually install them in, like /pentest, /reporting, /data framework, /wireless, /aircrack ng. So it kind of goes through all those different ones. Now, if you just want to install one module, you can go to a module and say, okay, whatever. Use modules, exploitations, SE toolkit. And this one right here, you notice here it changes where we're specifically at and showing that we're actually in the module /exploitation /SE toolkit directory. Now, once we're in there, you can just do show options, and it'll show you, a little bit of the actual module itself, the location of where it pulls the information from. Currently, the PTF supports Git, SVN, file pulls, a lot of different ways of just getting access to the most recent version of the tool. And again, I maintain a lot of these, but also the community does as well. And I'll show you a little bit about the modules here in a little bit. But you can also, set install type to different. You can set repository location to different, and it'll automatically, house those. But what you can also do is in the config file, if I exit out of here, config, PTF config, you can actually change the base install directory so it doesn't actually install under /pentest. You can put it under whatever you want to. Logs that are saved in a specific directory. And one thing here is that PTF tries to keep you up to date with everything, and that includes like operating system updates, like Debian packages, apt-get updates, apt-get upgrades, apt-get dist upgrades, all those different components. So it automatically will update all of your actual operating system for you too, as well as your tools, as long as you keep the auto update on. You can turn that off, and it'll just do the regular tool installs. But if I go back to show modules, if we want to go and install everything, we want all of our tools, all we need is this module /install _update all. Now, the first time you run this, it's going to take a while because there's a lot of tools out there, and there's a lot of data you need to download to install, but it'll automatically install them, configure them for you, compile them, get all the dependencies, everything you need for those tools to run. Metasploit, again, is like one of the most complex ones out of all of them. It'll build all of the gem bundles and everything else for you automatically, and you'll have it there, it's up to date. And what's great about that is Metasploit changes quite a bit. I mean, I don't know if you've seen what's out there, but I mean, there's like git pulls and pushes happening all the time with Metasploit. And one of the big issues that you had with more of the platform-specific distributions is that you get Metasploit and it'll be week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, out of date, which don't have a lot of those. So this actually goes and pulls from the most recent repos that you have in Metasploit or set or whatever, and automatically pulls those down and then packages those bundles again and then installs them. So it works out really well for having all those. But the first time you run this, when you use module /install _update all, it'll go through and install all those tools for you automatically. And then if you go and you run that again afterwards, it'll just go and update them. So just make sure that everything's up to date. So you manually update them whenever you want to. It's just a matter of just typing this one command. Wish I had one of those clip mics. Oh, and I got tab completion too, which is awesome. So use modules /install _update _all. And I'll hit yes. I'm just going to go through and basically do all of my updates for Ubuntu because I have auto updates set to on. So it's going to do an apt-get update, apt-get upgrade. It's been a couple of days since I upgraded, so it may take a second. But once it goes through that, it's going to cycle through all of the tools inside the list. Every single module, every single tool that there is out there. And it's not going to prompt you for anything. Automatically goes through that. And again, we get module submissions like all the time for them. So I think we had like 6 last week. So it's definitely building up. So if you have tool submissions that you want to, really easy to go and do. And I'll show you here in a second the module development. But it'll go through and cycle through all these, and I won't go through. I'll let it go in the background while I show you some other stuff. But pretty effective way of keeping your tools up to date. Now to create a module, second here. Sorry. Oh. There we go. I'm good. Now to update a module, The way modules work, actually, I think I'm here. I have a few different copies of it. Yeah, okay. In order to update a module, literally all of them under the modules directory. So if you do cd/modules, you'll see here all the different folder structures for the modules themselves. So if you're looking at getting a new tool, let's just say it's going to be a new exploitation tool. Easiest way to do it is go to exploitation here and take a look at all of the other modules that are in there. And as soon as you add a new Python file into the directory, it'll automatically get added into PTF, run through, installed, and everything else. There's also really great documentation. That's one of the things I always lack on is writing good documentation. So I wrote a pretty good set of how to create your own modules, what each flag does, a whole description around it, different flags that you can use. So there's also good tutorials on here. But one thing to show you is I'll just take an example of the SE toolkit. And first thing I do is define who the author of the module is. So it's easy for me to contact and kind of keep maintenance, plus give you credit for spending some time working on it. A little description of the tool. So this is going to install the Social Engineer Toolkit. What type you want it to be. So get SVN or file. So if it's a SVN repository, it'll go and do an SVN checkout or an SVN update. If it's a Git repository, it'll do a git clone, then git pull. If it's a file, it'll actually go and use curl or wget to actually go and pull those files down and then untar them, all that good stuff. Repository location, this is going to be the location of where you're going to actually go and download the file. Debian packages that are needed. So if you look at this one, Git, Build Essential, Python pexpect, Python crypto, and Python OpenSSL. Those are all going to be module dependencies for the Social Engineer Toolkit. And one of the cool methods that I use is called after commands. And what after commands is a lot of times when you install something, it requires things to happen afterwards, like a .4/configure or make install. Or untarring a file and then copying the directory structure, or bundling Ruby gems or things like that. So what you can do is if you want to do after commands, what you can do is you can say like cd into the install location like that, and that'll actually cd you into the install location. Then you can do okay .4/configure, make install. So whatever you want to add to these, as far as it'll do after it downloads it to actually go and install it, it'll go and run those. So there's a few different features that you can do. Launcher is a good one. Launcher will be, once it actually installs, it creates its own launcher, so you can call whatever application you want to, not just from the Pentest directory, but anywhere you want to. So if I went on SE Toolkit, notice I'm in root. If I just type SE Toolkit, it's going to go ahead and launch for me, move me into that directory, and automatically use it. Same thing for like MSF console or whatever you want to use. You can launch it from anywhere you want to. So it really builds your whole pen testing framework. Now, there's a lot of different commands out there. Let me show you. Let me find a good one here. Like on the Metasploit, again, this one is a total. Anyways, install Metasploit. Here's all of the required after commands in order to get to work, and then after actually go and install it every single time. So it's a lot of work that you actually go through, and then this creates all the launchers for like MSF console, MSF bin scan, MSFD, MSFL scan. So it actually goes through and creates those. So to create the launchers for each one that you have in there. Now, there's a couple of commands here. Let me just grab it real quick. Bypass. So a lot of times, like if you're using a, like a file pull, for example, you may want to say bypass update to no. And it'll actually go and install the file each time. So it'll actually go and pull the latest code repository, because you can't really do version control on files themselves. And it'll go and pull it, check to see if they're the same, and if it is, automatically go and install that update for you automatically. So it kind of does a little bit of that. Modules for Arch Linux. It supports a lot of different ways there. x86 locations, if there's 64-bit file types, all of those different ones work. Really kind of anything you want to use, you can kind of specify each and every one that's out there. But I mean, it has quite a bit of them. You can see here, go and post exploitation. It goes to all of the different modules that you have. I mean, crack, egress buster, John, Empire, interpreter over SSH, pivoter, powersploit, PyCAC, which is a Kerberos exploitation framework, pass the hash toolkit, unicorn. Go into exploitation. All your tools are in there, and they're already working and everything else, and they're tested. So you have the ability to kind of run through all of those. I notice back here, it's still installing all of these, right? So notice there's some changes here to one of the tools. It's going and updating them. It's updating Impacket, it's updating Malingo, basically updating all the different ones out there. Pretty easy? Yeah? Of course, you have commands. You can do like help and everything. All those different ones will definitely, make it easy for you if you don't understand the syntax or whatever. But that's really the concept behind PTF and what I wanted to get out of it. A way to keep your tools modular, easy to use. It's a work in progress. There are times where I learned that, when I release a module, it breaks PTF. So I'm getting more granular on fixing those. But it's one of those funny things when you write it. I actually wrote PTF like a year and a half ago, and I got it like 95% there, and then I totally forgot about it, and then I started working on other projects. And then someone's like, hey, you talked about PTF a while ago. Are you going to do something? I'm like, oh, I should probably release that. And then I went and released it, and then the community's been awesome and kind of adding on to it, which has been great. But I've been adding a lot more granularity of not breaking, the tool itself, making sure that certain packages are installing right, doesn't bork the rest of your packages, or it's a little different. I'm trying to get more platform specific on a lot of them, and it's a little difficult. So there's some talks around Docker and a few other things too to maybe help use that. But there's a lot of work going into this, a lot of community support, and it's a great framework that's out there for everybody. Any questions? No, so if a repo area is unavailable, it'll just time out, or it'll return a specific flag that isn't like an update function, like for like Git or SVN. File gets a little bit different. Like sometimes what'll happen is it'll let's just say they decide to move the package, which has happened before, and they move it to a different name. So like let's say they release a new version like 1.0.5, and they release 1.0.6, and they put the friggin' version number there, and they remove the old one, right? Then a lot of times that won't be there. So it does check those and compares them to see whether or not they're actually legitimately updates. It doesn't break the application if it's not available. So it still allows you to continuously update even if that, and it just wouldn't update that specific tool at that time if it was unavailable. Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does work with Kali. The biggest challenge with Kali is that they don't follow the standard packaging of like Ubuntu or Debian. So they have their own package names and everything else. So there, I've contemplated creating distributions for or packages for just them specifically to be able to call them up. But the same thing though, most of the dependencies for most of the tools out there are already in there. So yeah, it works. It actually works really well. You might get a package mismatch. Like hey, SQLite 3 is called something else different, somewhere else, but they're already going to be installed, which is a good thing. I've had it deployed on Kali before without a problem. I run it all the time, and it replaces all of the Kali launchers that are out there. So when you pull, like MSF console, for example, it'll overwrite Kali's MSF console launcher and then point you to the most recent version of Kali that you have out there. So it does work really well with Kali, but it also works, with Ubuntu, Debian, a lot of the other ones that are out there too. So I'm trying to stay more in the agnostic of the different platforms, but it does work really well with Kali. Good question. Any other questions? That was it. That's all I had. Thank you very much.